Hello, welcome to my C# string handling series. This lesson is use the StringBuilder class for efficient string manipulation in C#. Hi, my name's Paul Sheriff, and I have a passion for teaching. I have been training for over 35 years. I've written 14 books, hundreds of video training courses, articles, and blog posts. I've been a speaker at major conferences and user groups. I'm a mentor for high school and college students. I've owned a software consulting business for over 30 years. You can contact me at psheriff@pdsa.com or visit my website at www.pdsa.com. For this lesson, I'm going to assume that you are familiar with C# and .NET. The objectives for this lesson are to find out what is the StringBuilder class, why StringBuilder is more efficient, when to use the string class versus the StringBuilder class, and we're going to see several demos of using the StringBuilder class. The StringBuilder class is simply a repository for a string of characters. And we have methods to append data, append formatted data, append lines of data, add IEnumerable T collections to that StringBuilder. We also can search and replace strings or characters. Well, the StringBuilder doesn't sound that much different from the regular string that we use. So why is it more efficient? Well, the StringBuilder is a mutable string of characters, so it can be added to with little resources wasted. The reason why is because a buffer is pre-allocated to a specific size when you create a string builder, whereas a string class is not. When it runs out, another larger buffer is then added. This means that we're taking up less memory, and it's more efficient for the garbage collector. When you think about a string class, the string that we use in C# is immutable, which means once it's in memory, it's there. And so if you add something to that original string, and even if you just add a single character, well, a new string is then created, and the old string then is marked for garbage collection. So think about if you were to do this 100 times, we're adding a single character to a string, that's going to be very inefficient because it has to create a new area of memory, copy the string over and add that one, and then mark the original string for garbage collection. That does not happen with the StringBuilder. So when do we use string versus StringBuilder? Well, we use a string class when we have very small changes that are going to be made, when we want to do some searching, when we want to concatenate hard-coded strings over a few lines. And the reason why is because the compiler will generally take those hard-coded strings and combine them all together. Use the StringBuilder class when it's unknown how many changes you might make to a string. Or if you're going to be building a string by looping over some data, this would be an ideal use of the StringBuilder. So let's take a look at instantiating an instance of the StringBuilder class, and we'll check out how much room is actually pre-allocated. I've created a console application, and I'm doing a using on system.txt. I'm then going to create an instance of the StringBuilder, calling it SB. I then call this function called display SBInfo, passing in that SB variable. The function starts here on line 11. It's a void, and we simply pass in a StringBuilder. I'm then going to write out onto the console capacity, and I'll hit the capacity property of the StringBuilder object. I can also display how many characters that it can hold in total. That's got at by the max capacity property. And then I can also find out how many characters are currently in the buffer by using the length property. And when we run that, you can see the console will emit capacity equals 16. The max capacity is, as you can see, about 2 billion characters. But currently, there's nothing in there because I didn't put anything into the StringBuilder at this time, so the length is 0. We can specify how much we want that initial capacity to be. So if you know you're going to be putting in a large string, you might want to set that initial capacity to something else. Let's take a look at how we do that. Back here on line 3, one of the options that I can pass to the constructor of the StringBuilder is what I want the initial capacity to be. So remember before it was 16, that's the default in .NET. If we run this now we can see the capacity is 200 because that was the initial value that I asked it to start with. You may also initialize the StringBuilder object with an initial value, a string that you want to add to the StringBuilder. So we can also pass in a string here. For example, an Acme anvil. And let's go ahead and run this. And now you can see the capacity is back to 16 because I didn't pass in the initial capacity. But the length now is 10. So there's 10 characters that are currently inside of that StringBuilder object. And yes, as you might have guessed, we can also initialize a StringBuilder object with an initial value and a capacity. So the second parameter can be the capacity. You can see there's about 6 overloads here for the StringBuilder object. If we then go ahead and run this, now we can see that the capacity has been increased to 200 right off the bat, and the length is still 10. As I mentioned in the original slide, we can append data to the StringBuilder object, and we do that using the append method. So let's go back. Let's put this back to what it was originally, where we're not going to add any characters or anything. But let's do an sb.append, where the answer is always 42. So that's the value of the string that I'm putting in initially. And then let's find out what happens with the capacity and the length. So let's go ahead and run this. And now you can see the capacity is now 32. The length is 24. How did that happen? If you remember, the original buffer size was 16. As soon as you've put in enough characters that it's over that 16, it adds more to the buffer. It adds more to the capacity. So in this way, the StringBuilder is allocating chunks of memory, but it's not having to release anything, and that's why it is so much more efficient than the string class. Well, at some point you might want to do some searching or do something else that needs a string object. So let's take a look at how we convert the StringBuilder object back to just a regular C# string. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of code right here after we do the append. Line 7, string value equals sb.toString. It's that easy. You do a toString, it'll take whatever's in our buffer and give it back to us as a C# string or a .NET string. We can then do a console.writeLine on that value. Let's go ahead and run this, and we can now see that the answer is always 42, so that's coming from that console.writeLine, and then we're still reporting the maximum capacity, the capacity, and the length. Let's now append a carriage return line feed to the StringBuilder object using the AppendLine method. What I've done now is I've replaced the code that we had before. Line 3, I'm creating a new instance of the StringBuilder. Now I'm going to use an sb.AppendLine. So when I do line 1, it adds on the carriage return line feed. On the next line, sb.AppendLine line 2, it appends on the carriage return line feed, etc. And then I'm just going to do a console.writeLine on sb.toString. So when we run this, as we can see here, I get a line 1, line 2, line 3, all separated by that carriage return line feed. We can see the capacity, we can see the max capacity, and the length. There is an AppendFormat method on the StringBuilder object that allows you to format data using a composite string. Let's take a look. Replace the code again, so now we're going to create a string name equals Acme Anvil, decimal price equals 99.99, and then I'm going to use the sb.append format, where I'm going to use a composite string where I can put in replaceable tokens, so a squiggly brace, 0, closing squiggly is selling for, and then again, an opening brace there, 1:C, so I'm using the string formatting to give us a currency. So those placeholders then, I pass in comma name, comma price. So name goes into the 0, price goes into 1, where it's then formatted as currency. I'll then do a console.writeLine on that StringBuilder.toString. And if we run this, we can now see the string comes out with Acme Anvil is selling for $99. By the way, if you wish, instead of using append.format and using a composite, you may simply use sb.append and use an interpolated string. Now, I prefer these. I think they look a lot better, very easy to read, much easier to read than a composite string. So let's go ahead and run this. we should get the exact same output. Acme Anvil is selling for $99.99. Now let's say you happen to have a string array and you would like to append that to the string builder. Well, it comes with an AppendJoin method. Let's take a look. On line 5, I create a string array of names where I've got Acme Anvil, Acme Rocket Skates, and then on line 7, I do sb.AppendJoin. The first parameter is the separator of how I want those to be separated within the string builder, and then comma names. I can then do a console.writeLine on that sb.toString, and if we run this, we should now see Acme Anvil, comma space, because that was in the first parameter to the AppendJoin, and then the Acme Rocket Skates. So all of that string array got appended into a single string simply by using the AppendJoin method. And if you're like me, you're probably using a list of T, a generic list collection, as opposed to a lot of arrays. So we also can do the AppendJoin on a generic list or any IEnumerable collection. On line 5, I've replaced the string array with a list of strings. So I've got the same names, Acme Anvil, Acme Rocket Skates, and then on line 7, I'm still doing the AppendJoin with the comma and a space to say separate each one of those in my list with a comma and a space in between them, and it will append that to the string builder. And when we run this, we should see the exact same output that we got when using a string array. But now we're using any IEnumerable of T type of thing. Within the string builder, we can also perform a search and replace using the replace method. Let's take a look. Once again, I'm creating a bunch of lines, line 1, line 2, line 3, and I'm appending those to the string builder using the AppendLine method. I'm then going to, on line 10, do an sb.replace, where I look for line, space, and I replace it with new line, space, and then we'll emit this out to the console. So let's take a look when we run this, and now we can see new line 1, new line 2, new line 3, and new line 4. So that's nice, right? It was able to take what was there before, search, and replace with a new value. We can also remove all the data from a string builder object using the clear method. Let's take a look at that, and we'll pay close attention to what happens to the capacity property. I'm going to add a lot of information now into the string builder. So I've got this list of string of names. I'm going to join that in. I'm going to append a new line. I'm then going to do an AppendLine on line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'm going to do a console.writeLine on that so we can see it all. But then I'm going to do a display SB info with all of that data in there so we can see what the capacity and the max capacity and the length is. Then I'm going to do an SB.clear. Then we'll report one more time on those capacities. Let's go ahead and run this now. So now you can see everything in there. You see the capacity is 128. The max capacity is, of course, what it was. The length is 96. After doing the SB.clear, I get now a capacity down to 115, and the length is 0. So it's not like it's going to remove all of the capacity back to like 16 or whatever the default is. It's just going to remove a little bit. And I don't know what the algorithm is, because when you do this at different times with different length strings, it comes out differently each time. They don't really say what happens when you clear it. Irregardless, the length at least goes back to 0. Do you know why you should subscribe to YouTube channels? You'll get notifications when new videos appear. You'll get recommendations for related channels. It helps the channel grow, which allows me to create more videos for you. It helps attract others to my channel. Your like helps others find videos that are good. So please take the time to like and subscribe to my channel, Paul D. Sheriff. Well, I hope you enjoyed this lesson on using the StringBuilder class for efficient string manipulation in C#. I would highly recommend, if you are dealing with a lot of strings and a lot of manipulation, that you take a serious look at using the StringBuilder class.